In the last class, we were discussing about EC2. We have actually seen what is an AMI, right? And then we have seen what is an instance type, right? There are different AMIs that you would see: Ubuntu AMI, CentOS AMI, Red Hat AMI, WordPress AMIs, MySQL AMIs. So basically, AMI is nothing but it is actually a complete image of a machine. So AWS uses such images whenever you want to create a new EC2 machine. You can actually create that EC2 machine from an AMI which AWS already had given you, or probably a custom AMI that you have created inside your AWS account. You have an existing machine. For that machine, you have the option to take the AMI, which I will show you. So basically, now you know it is from an AMI that you create a machine, right? So
Mr.
let
Basu,
me mhm, let me log into the AWS account.
Mr. Basu,
Yeah,
uh, can I take the class tomorrow because I'm not feeling well today? Is it fine?
it's fine. Whenever you are okay, watch the video. Right? So watch the today's video before tomorrow's class.
Okay. Is this very important to today's class?
It is actually. It's an important class. So please definitely watch the video before tomorrow's class.
Can you show me the link? Can you give me the links, all the classes which I
You
not
all,
attempt?
I think you already have access, don't you?
Okay. Okay.
Raj is your contact person, right? Who is your contact person? Raj, right?
Yes.
Yeah, talk to him. Ask him for today's
It-
video, right?
Yeah. Okay.
After submitting.
And can you talk to can you tell Raj to please contact me tomorrow? Thank you.
I can do, but just make sure in case. I mean, I don't know. I
Yeah.
would be sharing the
Kosh.
videos from my side
Okay.
after today's
Okay.
class. Right?
Okay. My contact is Kaushik. Kaushik. Okay.
Kaushik, yeah, whoever it is, talk to him after
Okay.
3 hours from now. Right?
Okay.
By that time, I will be uploading the videos.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. So yesterday we have seen how to create the machine. In the last class, we have seen. Actually, we stopped in the middle. We have seen only first two steps. So we will continue where we started, where we have left. So first, you clicked on the launch instance button that redirected you to the AMI's page. So you have different options to choose from. You can either choose one of these AMI that you see in the front page. Most of the popular operating system are listed down here. Or if you do not see the operating system or the machine that you are looking for, then you can look for that AMI under this page, community AMIs page. You can see a wide variety of AMIs. There are nearly 21,046 AMIs out there you can choose from. And if you want to create your own AMI, let's say sometime, like I said, once you have an EC2 machine, then you can create your own AMIs. So in such situations, you can actually go to the My AMIs page where you can see the list of AMI that you have, the ones that you have created. You can select that AMI and create the machine. Or you can even go to the marketplace of AWS. Basically, you can purchase a AWS machine, right? You can purchase an AMI and create a machine that run Microsoft SQL Server and pay extra on a hourly basis to the license. So there are many licensed product out here you would see under the marketplace. Actually, the actual cost of these licenses are very high. The Splunk or Juniper, all these paid softwares are there. So if you want to set up a Microsoft SQL server, and you believe that that is very costly for you, because it is costly, it would cost you around, thousands of dollars, which you don't want to spend, right? You don't have enough money to purchase the license. So what you can actually do is, you can choose an AMI that run Microsoft SQL server, and AWS would charge you a little extra, uh, on a hourly basis for the use. I mean, how much time you use that machine, they would charge you little extra on a hourly basis. Okay, so in my case, I'm going with this option, Ubuntu Server 16.4, and we have seen what are the different instance classes, instance types, right? You can see the CPU and memory over here, how much you will get based on what instance type you are selecting. So depending on your requirement, right? When you are working with a real-time production environment, probably you need, in our lab we are using one CPU and 1 GB of RAM, but such machines would not really work in a production environment. Let's say you have a WordPress website and you have thousands of visitors to your website. Not this small machine can handle all those requests, right? So for that you would need a better sized machine. So based on your requirement, you need to choose what size of the machine you want. In your case, right now it is only T2 Micro that is free. That is the reason we are always going with this option, T2 Micro. Check this T2 micro option, click on next. It would then ask you which network you want to add the machine to, which subnet, right? All these things. Should it need a public IP or not, right? IAM role, which we haven't discussed yet, which we will when we learn IAM. Shutdown behavior is top. So all these things we have seen yesterday, right? So click next. This is step for add storage. Basically adding hard disk. I mean, whenever you create a machine that run a Linux operating system or Windows operating system, you need a hard disk where your operating system is going to be saved. And also if you want to download any songs, movies, whatever file that you want to save inside, they are actually saved inside a hard disk. That you know, right? I mean, if you have a laptop, you have a hard disk as well as a RAM is called the primary memory. Hard disk is called the storage, right? It is in that secondary storage where you are going to save all your files, and even your operating system itself is inside that hard disk, right? If it is Windows, it is inside the C drive your Windows operating system is installed, right? So here you select, you can choose how much size you want, right? 8 GB, 10 GB, 15 GB, or how much amount of storage space you want. You can choose the storage space here. If you specify 8 GB, 2 GB of would be taken for operating system, and you have again 6 GB remaining to save your custom files and stuff. So yeah, so this is the place where you can add storage. If you want to add additional storage, you can click on add new volume, and here you can choose how much size you want. Let's say instead of 8 you want 20 GB, right? So you have the option to choose how much space you want for the hard disk that you are choosing. So in my case, I am going with only one. I need only one hard disk. It's up to me how much hard disk I want to create. I mean, it's possible, right? If you have a laptop, you can attach multiple hard disks together. It's possible actually. And if you want to attach a pen drive, then you can again insert a USB pen drive into your one of the USB ports, right? It's possible that you can add more volume. So here also you can add more volume, then click on next. So actually, so you would be wondering how you can attach a hard disk into a virtual machine. I told you, from AWS what you are getting is a virtual machine, right? There is a physical host machine, an actual computer sitting inside AWS data center. When you purchase an EC2 machine, inside this actual computer you are getting a small portion of it. You will get a small portion of the CPU, a small portion of the memory, a small portion of the hard disk. Not really actually, You will get this machine. This is a virtual machine that you are getting, and the hard disk that I am attaching here, the storage which I am attaching here, the 8 GB storage, right? This is actually not a storage inside this host machine. It's actually a storage sitting somewhere outside in AWS data center. It would contain, maybe this is like a network that contains a number of hard disks, and they actually created a network storage out of it by combining a multiple hard disks. They created a network attached storage. So whenever you are purchasing a new volume to your machine, actually what happens is, from this big storage, an 8 GB would be reserved for you, and this 8 GB volume would be remotely mounted on this VM that you are creating. Actually, this is what happens internally. Even though to you it would look like a actual hard disk, it is not. It is a network attached storage that AWS is mounting on your VM through a network, right? It's not directly inside the same machine. The hard disk is actually sitting in a different place. This VM is sitting actually in a different place, and the hard disk is attached remotely through a network. But you don't really care about it, right? In your case, what what would it would appear to you is, you get a machine that has a hard disk, that has memory and CPU. All right, fine. So right, so that's it. And now click on next, add tags. Then it will basically, these are some identifiers of your machine, what type of machine it is. Maybe you can add some identifier like type is equal to web, software that you're running is equal to Apache. So like that you can actually, right? Or you can put some name is equal to web 001, or group is equal to, you want the machine to be added to the group, web server. So like that you can actually add a number of tags to your machine. Basically, these are the identifiers of the machine, and at a later stage, if you want to find out, uh, you can issue some query to AWS telling that, give me the list of machine which are part of the group web server, or which has the name web 001, or which is running the software Apache. So like this I can send some queries to AWS later if I specify some tag here like this. Basically, these are some identifiers of the machine. Then click on next. Security group, probably this is something we already have discussed. Whenever you create a new EC2 machine in AWS, or right, for any EC2 machine in AWS, there exists a security group that sit in front of your EC2 machine. This security group will block any connection coming to your EC2 machine. Let's say somebody is browsing for HTTP, the IP address of your machine. The request is trying to hit port 80 on the machine, but the security group will block the port. It will not allow you to connect to port 80. First, you need to open port 80 in the security group. Then only you can actually connect to the port 80 on EC2 machine. Or you want to open your putty, then you want to SSH to the machine. So if you want to SSH to the machine, you are actually trying to connect to the port 22 on this EC2 machine. So in that case also, port 22 should be allowed in the security group. So any port that you want to connect to your EC2 machine, the port should be open in the security group. It's something like a firewall. So maybe you might not remember you added 22 port anywhere. Actually, it is added by default. Whenever you create a new EC2 machine, the rule 22 is added by default. That is the reason you are able to connect using putty. If the port 22 was not open, you won't be able to connect to port 22. Basically, you will not be able to log into your remote EC2 machine. So this is where you can see, actually, by default in this page, it would ask you, it would ask you what you want to do. You want to create a new security group, or you want to choose from an existing security group. I already have too many security group created. So if I go with this option, it would ask me to choose from the existing security group. In my case, I want to create a new security group, and over here itself I can add the rules. By default, there is one rule. The rule is SSH, and you are basically opening port 22, your EC2 machine port 22 you are opening in the firewall. So by default this rule would be there. If you want to delete it, you can delete it. If you click on this X button over here, the rule will be deleted. That means you are now creating a machine which does not have any port opened. Now if you try to log into this machine, you will not be able to log into the machine because port 22 is not open. The SSH port is not open. So you must add the SSH port. From the drop down you can directly select SSH, and then you can open the port 22. If you want to open any custom port, let's say 80, you want to open the port 80, then you can choose the port 80. Or you want to open a different port 8080, you can choose. So in that case you can use this option, custom TCP rule, and then specify the port number here. And over here you have the option to select who can connect to this port. Basically, right, your EC2 machine is here, right, your EC2 machine is here. Can anyone in the world connect to this EC2 machine? Maybe you don't want that. You want only specific people from specific IP address want to connect to your EC2 machine, but not everyone. So you can actually specify which IP block can connect to my EC2 machine, right? If this guy is browsing from a particular IP block, then allow him. So you can actually specify which IP block can connect to the specified port here. Let's say I want those who has an IP range of 120.0.0.0 slash 24. Only this IP address, anybody from one of this IP, this is a IP block that contains, you know what this IP block means, the last digit vary from 0 to 255. So this IP block, anybody from this IP try to connect to my EC2 machine, they can connect on port 8080. That's what this particular rule means. Okay, so that's it. So that is the last step, the creating the security group. Now that is done, click on review and launch button over here. Or if you choose anywhere from the drop down, it will appear like 0.0.0.0 slash 0. That means the entire IPv4, the entire internet is what mean by 0.0.0.0 slash 0. Now click on review and launch button. It would show you a summary of all the options that you have selected. If you want to change any of the option that you have selected, you have the edit button on the right side, which you can click on and then make the modification, right? Then click on launch button. It will ask you to create a new key pair or choose from an existing key pair. There are two options, you already know. And what you initially what you did is you would first create a new key pair, then you specify a key pair and you click on download button. The private key will be downloaded to your laptop. Then using that key, you use that key in your putty to log into the remote computer, remote EC2 machine. So in my case, once you created a machine, created a key, that key would be present inside your AWS account. At any point of time, you can choose this option, choose existing key pair, and then select whatever key that you want to use. December 14. So check this box, then click on review and launch. Launch instance. Then the machine will be launched. Right, the EC2 machine is now being created. It would take a couple of seconds to create the EC2 machine. So we will wait. Now click on services, go to EC2. Then click on instances on the left side. You can see the machine which is in running state. Got it? Okay, fine. So So I will talk about key pair. We will discuss what is a key pair. Is my screen lagging? Okay.
No, Vijay.
Let me know if you feel like my screen is lagging. Let me know. All right. So I will talk about a key pair. So we have been talking a lot about key pair. Whenever you want to log into a EC2 machine, you want a key pair. What is a key pair and why it is called a key pair? It's lagging, right? I think maybe because my sitting position is not. Okay, let me know if you still find the problem, right? So we will talk about key pair. What is a key pair? Actually, this key pair is not a single key, right? That's why you call it a pair. It is actually a set of two keys, one private key and one public key. So for you associate one key with each of your EC2 machine. Whenever you create an EC2 machine, you associate a key pair with that machine. Either you will create a new one or you will choose from an existing one. And this private key is what that you have in your laptop. This is your laptop. This is the remote EC2 machine that you have created. The private key is saved inside your laptop. Public key is saved inside your EC2 machine. So what actually happens is when you open your putty in your laptop, you use private key inside your putty, then you will try to connect to the remote machine. What the remote machine contains is a public key. It will try to match both keys, the private and the public. And if it is matching, then this machine know that it is a authorized attempt because whoever connecting it is, he is using the pair of this public key, which means this guy has the private key, then it will allow him to log in. This is how the key authentication works uh, in Linux environment. And this key that we are talking about, it is not specific to AWS. It's a global protocol. It's called RSA. These key pair are called RSA key pair. It is a global protocol. If you want using Puttygen in your laptop, you can create a key pair yourself. Or in a MacBook, you can run the command SSH keygen. Then it would create a key pair. Or you can browse any online forum or maybe you can search in Google. Create key pair online. You have the option. You will get a lot of websites where you can actually create a key pair. So there are many ways you can create a key pair. So these are called RSA key pairs. RSA public and private key. So yeah, over here I can see the key. It already generated a key pair for me. This is the private key. This is the public key. So what is the relation between these two keys? The relation is, let's assume you have one file. This is a file that contains some sensitive data. If I encrypt this file, you know what is encryption? Make this file unreadable. That's what I mean by encryption. Let's say you are encrypting this file using the private key. The file, there is only one key in the world that can decrypt it. It is the public key of this key pair. Assume there is a key pair, private key and public key. Using one of these key, a file was encrypted. It can be decrypted. That means the reverse operation can be performed only by the other key. And it's vice versa. Let's say this file was encrypted using the public key, then it can be decrypted only by the private key. It's a rule, right? So no other key in the world can decrypt this file. Now let's say, let me ask you one more question. This is computer A and this is computer B. And A want to send a file to B, right? A want to send a file to B. The private key is a confidential data which you should not share with everyone. It should be kept with yourself. A has a private key and public key. He has a key pair for himself. B has a private key and public key for himself. And this public key can be shared with anyone. That's fine. If A share his public key with B, that's not a security problem. Now let's say A want to send a file to B. A have very confidential file. This file he want to send to B. How he will do it? Which key he should use to encrypt the file?
The private key.
The private key of A can use to encrypt this file. That is possible. And then this file can be sent to B. How B will decrypt the file?
Using public key of A.
Using public key of A. That is the only key which can decrypt this file. So B will have public key with himself. This key would be used for decrypting the file. And now he got the file back on B's computer. It's possible. Or a better option, always remember this public key is available to everyone. So whoever has this public key of A, they can decrypt this file if they have this encrypted file. So a better option would be A can encrypt the file using public key of B. If the file was encrypted by public key of B, which all A already have because it's public, right? Then the file is sent to B. Then there is only one key in the world that can decrypt it, which is private key of B, and private key of B is only with B. Nobody else will have access to the private key of B. He can decrypt the file and use it. That's a better option. So I just wanted to show you. So this is the relation between the key pairs. Both are complementary to each other. Actually, inverse to each other is the right term to use. All right, fine. So how about the SSH connection? Let's say this is computer A, this is computer B. Even if we are using PuTTY, actually it is the SSH protocol which PuTTY uses. So if I say SSH, I also meant to say your PuTTY connection. Don't get confused, right? If I say computer A want to connect to computer B using SSH, what it means is the remote machine is a Linux machine, and to that Linux machine you are logging from the computer A. So maybe you are using PuTTY in A, or maybe you are using the Mac terminal in A, doesn't really matter, right? It's the backend protocol is SSH. PuTTY uses SSH as the protocol when it want to connect to a remote Linux machine. Okay, so assume A has a key pair, private key and public key. A want to log into computer B. So assume what A would do is A will encrypt this SSH connection with the private key of A. And then when the connection hit the computer B, and if this public key is saved in computer B, then the machine B will try to decrypt the SSH connection using the public key that is saved inside this computer. And if it is successful, if it successfully decrypted the connection, what does that mean? The connection came encrypted using the private key of this key pair. That means it is a valid login attempt. Then machine B will allow A to log in. So basically, the public key of A should be available inside the machine B if A want to log into computer B. The same concept is what happens in AWS. Actually, you create a key pair in AWS. What happens is it generates a private key as well as a public key, and AWS will save only your public key. The private key will be downloaded to your computer, and it is your responsibility to keep it secure. You should not share the private key with anyone. Not even AWS is going to save your private key. It is yours. So you are on computer A with the private key of the key pair. What AWS will do is when they create the EC2 machine for me, the public key would be saved inside the EC2 machine. That is the reason from your PuTTY you are using the private key to log in to the remote EC2 machine. And once a key pair is created inside AWS will save this public key permanently. December 14, when I created the new machine, I choose the option choose existing key. Then I choose December 14 as my key. Then I created the EC2 machine. What actually happened? AWS already have the public key of December 14, and that key they will put inside my EC2 machine. If I have the December 14 private key in my laptop, using that key I can log into the remote machine. Right? So, and again I repeat, this private key and public key pair is not something which is actually, right, discovered by AWS. I mean, it's something that already exists. It is a RSA key pair. The protocol already exists. AWS rely on this RSA protocol to create this key pair for you. Even you can do that. What you can actually do is, let's say I have my MacBook, and in my Mac, if I can run a command. Before that, let me delete. If I have any existing key, I will delete them. So I can simply run this command ssh keygen. Remember, I am running this command not from any Linux machine. This is my Mac terminal that I have opened here, and I am running this command ssh keygen. What this command will do is it would create a key pair in my MacBook. Let me run this command. So it will ask you for lots of options. Just press enter, enter, enter. It would create a key pair for me. This is the private key. This is the public key. If you look the content of this particular file, VI editor is there in my MacBook. Also VI file name. You can see the private key. This is the public key. If you open the file in a VI editor, you can see the public key. So this is a key pair. This is the private key, and this is the public key, and they are a pair. They are a pair. Now let's say this I call my MacBook machine A. Then I already created a new EC2 machine. I call the new EC2 machine B. Into this EC2 machine, if I copy this public key of from my Mac, then using this private key, I can log in from my Mac to the remote EC2 machine. Am I right? Yes. So that's what I'm going to do. I already created a key pair. This is the private key. This is the public key. The public key I am going to copy to my EC2 machine. So go to my EC2 machine. First, let me log into the EC2 machine, and always remember, when I created this EC2 machine, I choose December 14 as my key. I already have that December 14 key in my MacBook. So first, when I want to log into this machine, I will use December 14 key, because only after I log in to the machine, I can copy this public key, right? So first I am using this December 14 key to log in to the remote machine. I will open a new tab, run the command ssh-i, the same command that I used to run ssh-i. In your case, you are using putty. In my case, I am using ssh command from Mac terminal, ssh-i, the private key, then ubuntu the IP address of the machine that I have created. Run this command. Then I am logged into the remote machine as user Ubuntu. I'm logged in as Ubuntu. Fine. I will show you in which file AWS will save the public key. I created this machine with December 14 as the key, which means the public key of December 14 is saved inside this EC2 machine under Ubuntu user, and it is located inside this folder. Right now I am inside /home/ubuntu. Inside /home/ubuntu, you would find a .ssh folder there. Go to that .ssh folder, type ls, you would see a file called authorized keys. So if you open the authorized keys, you can actually see the public key of December 14, which is saved here. This is the reason, this is done by AWS. AWS did that for me when I launched the machine with the key December 14. AWS copied the public key of December 14 inside my EC2 machine. That is the reason I was able to log in to the machine with December 14.pem, the private key file. Okay, now what I want to do is, in my MacBook, I created a key pair, a private and public key. So this public key, I am going to copy from my Mac to the remote EC2 machine into the same file. I can actually put it line by line, right? So I copied my MacBook key on the same file. I can put it line by line. Any number of public key that you want to add to the file, you can add them line by line. So I added one more key, which is nothing but my MacBook key. So what all things I did now? I created a EC2 machine. Then in my MacBook, this is computer A, I generated a key pair, a private and public key. The content of this public key I copied into the remote EC2 machine. Under which folder? /home/ubuntu /.ssh/authorized keys. Inside that file, I copied my public key. Now using this private key from my Mac, I will try to log into the remote EC2 machine. How will I do that? ssh-i .ssh id rsa. So this is my private key. This is the private key in my Mac. Using that key, I want to log in this time. Ubuntu @ the remote IP. Yeah, I am logged in, but this time using a different private key. So this way, it's up to you which key you want to use, or If you want to create a key pair yourself, you can create a key pair yourself. Just make sure that the public key is actually kept inside .ssh authorized keys or files of the remote machine. Then you are eligible to log in using the private key. Okay, now let's say, and this is how you should do in a real-time environment, right? If you want to create a login for some guy, somebody want to log into a production server, what you do, you will ask them for their public key. You will ask them, send me your public key, then I can create a user for you, then I will add your public key over there, then use your private key to log into the machine. Got it? So that is the best practice. So you will basically you are making sure that everyone users has their own private key and you are not sharing. Basically, if you have a single EC2 machine and you want 10 people to log into the machine, then you want to share this private key, the December 14 private key you want to share with everyone, then they can use that key in their putty to log into the machine, which is not very advisable. So how you would automatically create a key pair, then import that key into AWS. Let's say I in my Mac machine A, I have already created a key pair and I want this key pair to be used in my MacBook permanently. What it also means is whenever I want to create a new machine in AWS, I want all those machines to be created using the public key of my MacBook, not any key which AWS generates. What I can do is I can import this public key into AWS. There's an option. I will show you. What you need to do is go log into AWS. You can click on key pair in the EC2 page. Click on key pair down. Here you can see the list of key which AWS saves. December 14 is one of them. Like that, there are different keys. So if you want to import a new key pair or you want to create a new key pair, you can just click on create new key pair button. It would create a key pair and the private key will be downloaded to your laptop and public key AWS will save. Or if I want my public key to be imported inside AWS, I can click on import key pair button. Over here, I can copy paste my public key. In my MacBook, I have a public key inside .ssh id rsa.pub file. This public key I can actually copy paste into AWS. Basically, I am importing my key into AWS. Then later on, if I want to create a new machine, Basil Mac. Next time when I want to create a new machine, I can actually use this key to launch the machine. Then Basil Mac will automatically have access to that machine because the private key I already have in my laptop, in my Mac. This is also possible. So that's what a key pair is. Any questions so far? Okay,
No, Basil. Yeah.
it's pretty clear.
Actually, in our industry also we are using this key pair value. Like this way.
Mm-hmm.
In our industry also we are using this key pair value like this way only.
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
SSH is the commonly used protocol in the industry. Even many, I mean, people want to log into the production machines or development machines or any cases. Two machine want to communicate each other through SSH. Some machine want to transfer file from one machine to another machine. For any kind of such transfers, this key pair is used very globally, which is a very secure option. Apart from password, the password is not a secure option if you want to log into a machine, right? But key pair is a secure option. It is a the key itself is 2048 bytes in length.
Mr. Basil?
Yeah, Balraj. Yes, Balraj. Go ahead. Hello.
Hello.
Your voice is breaking. Yeah, it's still breaking, Balraj.
Yes, yes.
Maybe you can
See,
fix this.
I have a
Yeah,
question, okay?
yeah.
Still breaking?
And now it's okay.
1 minute, 1 minute.
Now it is okay.
All right. It's okay, right?
Yeah.
Mhm. See, my question is like I have by default we have created one key pair, right? Like December 19 I have created .pem. That is already has been created, and then I have downloaded that file to my laptop.
Right.
I mean local laptop. All right. See, what I can do is like I can create one more file. I mean by using keygen
Mm-hmm.
in my laptop,
Mm-hmm.
and can I uh, copy that public key to my which one EC2 machine.
Mm-hmm.
That is a second. I mean, I'll let call it as like a, I mean, 2-1. I mean, second one.
Mm.
Okay. If in case if I lost my, I mean, if I delete my old one, that is December 19. I mean, .pem file means. I mean, key. Still, I can able to access this EC2 machine, right?
Yes.
I can do that, right? Okay. Okay.
So each keys
Hmm.
are individual pairs, right? Anybody
Hmm.
who has
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
private pair can log in. So basically, you
Okay.
are
It's not.
publishing the list of keys who can log into your computer. Inside the authorized keys file, if you put multiple public keys, what it means is you are just listing down which who can log in.
Hmm. 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 All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Jay Prakash, do you
Thanks.
have any option to
That's what my question
export
is.
the key? Don't have an option to export the key. If it is the public key that you want to download, it's not required. Actually, if you have Putigen from the private key itself, you can regenerate your public key. So if I have a private key, that's all I need. If I have the private key, from private key I can regenerate my public key. But the reverse definitely not possible, and you know the reason now. If you have the public key, you cannot create public private key from it. That's not possible. But if you have the private key, as long as you have the private key, you can create the regenerate the public key out of it using Putigen. In Windows, you can use Putigen. If you remember, you had used Putigen once when you want to convert your PEM file to PPK, right? PEM to PPK conversion you did using Putigen, right? So the same tool you can use if you want to get the public key. If you have a private key, you have a PPK file, and if you import this PPK file into Putigen, then on the top box you would actually see the public key. And if you want to create a key pair in Windows, you want to create a private and public new key pair you want to create, you can still again use Putigen, open Putigen, then you have the option, click on create new key pair button to create a private public key pair. It's possible.
But in anyhow, if we deleted the public key, we won't be able to log in it.
If we lost the
We will
private
not
key,
get
it
it.
is lost. There is no
We
way.
will not get the private key also because now we are not able to log in also.
Right. So private key AWS will not save.
So nowhere in GUI also in AWS we have the option to copy the private key.
No.
No.
AWS will not save your private key. Actually, they shouldn't. I mean, in fact, you shouldn't even let AWS create the key pair for you. I would rather use this import option, right? Because only you have access to your private key. In my case, in my Mac, I created a private and public key. I have a private and public, and this public key I would import to AWS. Then whenever I want to create a new machine, I would use this public key. So basically, right? I mean, a third person creating the private key for me is definitely not something I would prefer over I creating it myself. And even that's what people do once machines are created in a production environment, and not everyone do. I mean, it's a safe option. Even if you let AWS create the key pair for you, there is no security problem. But if you want to meet some security compliance, those things, you shouldn't really allow a third person to create the private key for you. So in that case, you can always go with this option, import key. Then you import the public keys that you want to save inside AWS. Then AWS, you have the option whenever you create a new machine, you can actually choose here. You can choose which key pair you want to use. Right here, you can choose Bazel Mac. Then I can create the machine. So yeah, do one thing. Take a short break of 5 minutes. We will continue in 5 minutes. Key pair, the key pair concept is very important, right? We are going to use this key pair concept many places in our course itself. When we learn Jenkins, when we learn Chef, Ansible, right? There are many places where we would be using this key pair authentication, right? And that's a widely used authentication method in any infrastructures. Okay. So next thing, we have seen different things, right? So over here, the AMIs, I talked about AMIs, and I said you can create your own AMIs. Let's say this is a machine where I have set up WordPress and MySQL, everything. Now I want to take an AMI of this machine. I can right click, then go to uh, image, click on create image, give it some name, right? Then click on create image button. That would actually start creating a new AMI. And if I go to this page under images, if I click on AMIs, right now it's not visible. It will take some time. Within some time, that AMI which got created would come here. I can see the AMI here. I can simply right click on that AMI, then I will get an option to launch a new machine from that AMI. So it's possible. So just for your information, you can actually use the same AMI to create multiple machines. All machine will look alike. Whatever the original machine contained, all new machine that you create from the AMI will contain.
Basil, I have a quick question. So the image we are creating, does it even have the softwares and everything we have installed on the old machine?
Everything, softwares or any file, the complete hard disk is cloned.
Oh, okay.
Right. And then in the instance page itself, you may have noticed some different type of machines, instances. then spot instances, reserved instances, dedicated host, launch template is something new. What is, I think you can specify the settings. It's nothing actually. Whenever you want to create a machine, you can actually choose a template. Right? You can create a template by specifying T2 micro machine, which uses this AMI. Then you can mention T2 small machine that uses another AMI. So like that, you can create a template, and from that template, you can launch EC2 machine. Just something like a template, so that you don't have to choose the options one by one each time when you create a new machine. You can put them all together in a template and use that template to create a new machine. That's what launch template is. So apart from launch template, you see four options. Instances, these are instances or on-demand instances, spot instances, reserved instances, and dedicated hosts. So what are these? Instances, you already know what it is. They are also called on-demand instances that you can create in AWS, and you are charged on an hourly basis. AWS would charge you on an hourly basis. In your case, you have 750 free T2 micro machine usage. So in your case, most probably it is free. Otherwise, typically AWS would count your hours and charge you a amount for on an hourly basis. So those kind of instances that you create in AWS are called on-demand instances. That's what we have been doing. And there is another option called reserved instances. Basically, let's say I believe that I'm going to use this machine for next 1 year. Right, I am going to run my WordPress. My website is now very popular. I want to continue for at least 1 year. I want to use this machine for at least 1 year. What I can do is I can reserve the machine for 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year. Once I reserve those machine, then I am responsible for that machine usage. You cannot stop the machine then start the machine later. That's not possible. If you reserved it, you must use it throughout throughout the day, throughout the month, throughout the reserved period, 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year. There is no exception. But the good thing is you need to pay an upfront. I mean, you have to pay an upfront. Then your hourly charges would considerably reduce. So after 1 year, if you make the total calculation, you would save a lot of money if you go with on-demand instances. I mean, reserved instances instead of on-demand instances. So these options is preferred when you are buying machines for long time use. Minimum 1 year you need to reserve. The good thing with reserved instances is not only saving money. Reserving instances means AWS would reserve a machine for you no matter what crisis they are going through. Maybe they don't have enough hardware to give it to their customers. Whatever crisis they are going through, they are responsible for giving you the machine if you reserve your machine. So that will also a guarantee that your machine is out there in AWS data center. Nobody else can take it. It's always available to you. So you won't get that guarantee with other on-demand instance or other types of instances. Okay. The next option is dedicated host. Basically, I told you there is a host machine inside which your EC2 machines are actually getting created. So probably in a single host machine, there can be tens of EC2 machine. One EC2 machine is yours. Other EC2 machine may be belonging to other AWS customers. It's possible. So probably you are sharing a single host with multiple AWS customers, and one of the EC2 machine is yours. It's possible. I mean, that's how AWS had configured their virtualized their infrastructure. So now let's say I don't want to do it. I want I want myself a dedicated host machine. Then from here I can actually reserve my own dedicated host machine, which is actually costly. It would cost me extra. But the good thing is that whenever you create a machine, the machines are going to be launched in your own host, which is not shared with any other AWS customers. That's what I mean by dedicated hosts. So these are the different types of machine. Spot request is more like you can bid for machines. They are the cheapest ones. You can bid for a machine. Let's say how it works is AWS will have a spot price. Maybe today the price for T2 micro is 0.0.0.1, 0.0001. Then next 1 hour it is 0.0002, 0.0003. Then it will change. I mean, the spot instance price would change based on how much resources are free in AWS data centers. AWS do this calculation and they would fix a spot price for the machines. And this price is going to be very cheapest compared to reserved instance or on-demand instances. But there is no guarantee. So what I can do is I can tell AWS that if this spot price is up to $0.1, give that machine to me. Right? I want a spot machine. But if the actual price of this spot machine it ever exceed this $0.1, let's say this value changed and it ever crosses $1, then I don't need that spot machine anymore. The machine will be immediately terminated. So it's not a guaranteed machine. You reserve the machine by specifying a bid price, and if you specify a large bid price, let's say $1, you specified it, then it is possible that you are not actually reaching $1, but the spot price is going very high. The rate is very high. So your monthly bill will be high accordingly. So it's a you should set a appropriate bid price. If the actual spot price is ever cross your bid price, it will get terminated. So you need to choose it wisely so that you will not be overcharged. But this is not the price that you are being charged, it is the spot price you are being charged. This threshold you are setting just to make sure that if this spot price ever grow beyond this point, terminate the machine immediately and I don't want to pay anymore, like that. That's what a spot instance is. And volume snapshots, volumes is nothing but the storage that you have added. You already have added a 8 GB storage, right? That you can see here. This is the storage that you have already created and it is in use. You can see, as you can see here, right? If you want to create a new volume, let's say I already launched my machine, now I want to create a new volume, I can click on new volume, then specify the size, maybe 10 GB. Then I click on create volume button. Make sure that it is on the same availability zone as the machine is, otherwise it won't work. My machine is, I think it is in 1B. Yeah, my machine is in 1B. So in that case, if I want to create a new volume, attach the volume to my machine, I must create the volume also in 1B availability zone. That is important. Otherwise you cannot. So click on create volume. That's it, the volume is created. Volume did not show up till now. Yeah, 100 GB volume is what I have created. Don't do that, actually they will charge you. Right, up to 30 GB you can create. I already have 8 GB. I have 8 GB here, so 16 plus 100, 116. My maximum limit under free tier is 30 GB. If I create more than 30 GB hard disk, I would be charged for extra. So right now I am using 116. So if I minus 30 from it, it's still how much it is? 86. For 86 GB I need to pay. So once I created the volume, I can right click, select the option attach volume, then I can select to which instance I want to attach, then click on attach button. Then it is like you connected a new pen drive which has 100 GB into your laptop. So basically, you are attaching a secondary volume into your EC2 machine by following this. If I want to detach it, I can right click, then click on force detach option. Then the volume will be detached from my EC2 machine. Soon you would see the state would change to available once it is detached. So now it is available. That means it is already detached. Once the machine is detached, then I can right click and delete the volume. Then only the volume will go, right? Right click, click on delete. The volume is deleted. If you refresh it, you won't see that anymore. And if you want to take the complete hard disk backup, you can take snapshots. This is my primary hard disk of my system, right? This is my primary hard disk. Now let's say I want to take a backup of this hard disk. I can right click, then select this option, create snapshot, then give it some name. Click on create button. The snapshot is created. I mean, it will be created within some time. Then I can click on this snapshot button here. I can see the new snapshot is being created. It would contain the entire hard disk clone. The complete hard disk would be cloned into this snapshot. So from this snapshot, I can create new hard disk, new volume. I can simply right click on the snapshot, then select this option, create volume. Then I can specify how much size I want. So basically, the complete data that was there in the old volume, it will retain, right? And but the size of the new hard disk would be 10 GB, because I specified 10 GB. You can see this 10 GB hard disk got created, which would actually contain the same data as the previous hard disk, from which I created this uh, snapshot, right? So snapshot are the backups of hard disk. Image is the complete backup of a machine. What are the got it? And security group we already discussed. Key pairs we discussed. Elastic IP. So I don't know whether if you noticed it or not. You have a machine. If you stop the machine and start the machine later, the machine will actually get a new IP. Right now the machine is in running status. If I stop this machine, I right click and stop the machine. You already know how to stop the machine and start the machine later, right? If I right click and stop the machine will get stopped, right? In some time the machine will get stopped, and this IP address will go from the machine. Once the machine got stopped, you will find that this IP address is gone. The machine already had a public IP. That IP would be removed from the machine after it is stopped. Basically, this is not a static IP, it is a dynamic IP. Later, if I start the machine, if I right click on the machine, then start the machine, in that case, what happens is it will get a new IP. When I start the machine later on, the machine will get a new IP. So whenever you stop and start a EC2 machine, the public IP will change. Maybe you wouldn't like that in many cases. So my machine got stopped. You can see the public IP is gone. Now it is left only with the private IP. Now if I start the machine, you would actually find a different public IP for the machine, right? This is a new IP, not the old one. So whenever you stop and start a machine, the IP address will go. So think about this. You already have a website, basil.com. It's a already registered website, and using DNS, you already pointed basil.com to your EC2 machine, which is running WordPress or Apache. And people from all part of the world, they are browsing for basil.com. So in the DNS system, what you did, you added an A record to point basil.com to what IP? The IP address of your EC2 machine, this machine. Now let's say you stopped this machine and started this machine. The IP address has changed. It got a new IP. But how about the DNS? The DNS is a different system. It is not updated with a new IP because you stopped and started the machine. Your DNS system does not know you stopped or started the machine, or if the IP address has changed. You need to manually update this entry. Otherwise, the DNS system does not know your IP address has changed. So after stopping and starting IP, whenever people browse from internet, they will again reach out to the authoritative name server, what are the IP address of basil.com, they will actually get the old IP, which is a wrong IP, from authoritative name server of basil.com, and they will try to connect to that IP which is not available anymore. Then your website would become down for everyone on the internet. It won't work anymore, which is a problem. So how you can overcome this problem? You don't want the EC2 machine IP changing. So AWS gives you a flexibility for that by giving you a elastic IP option. Over here, if you come down under the network security, click on elastic IP, you have the option to create IP addresses. Basically, you are reserving an IP address for yourself. You are buying an IP from AWS, and once you purchase an IP, then it's up to you to decide how to use that IP. Let's say you have an EC2 machine, and you can attach this new IP that you created here to this machine, and at later point of time you decided that okay, you want this IP address be removed from the machine, then IP address be attached on a new machine. Then later, let's say you decide to stop this machine and then start this machine later, then still the IP address will not change. So you have complete privilege over this IP, and you can choose where you want the IP address to be attached, and should that attachment be permanent, right? Even if the machine gets stopped and started, the IP address will still remain on the same machine. It will not change. That's what an elastic IP is. So you click on this button, allocate new address, you will get an IP. Click on allocate, you will get an IP. This is your IP. So in this elastic IP page, you can see the list of IP that you already have. Right now there is one IP, and my EC2 machine, if I go to my EC2 machine, I can see the machine is already started, and this is the IP address of the machine, which is a dynamic IP. It is not a permanent IP. Now I want my machine to have the elastic IP. What I can do, I can go to my elastic IP, I can right click on the IP, then select this option associate address, then over here I can choose to which EC2 machine I want to attach the IP to, then click on associate. That's it. Now your EC2 machine IP has changed. Now if you click on instances, you can see it got a new IP, which is nothing but the elastic IP. You attached the elastic IP onto this machine. Now if I stop the machine and start the machine, this IP will not change. This will become a permanent IP. This IP address will not change unless I go here and manually disassociate it. I can right click on the IP address anytime, click on disassociate button, the IP address would be disassociated from the EC2 machine. Then automatically the EC2 machine will, the IP address will go, and the EC2 machine will get a different IP. This is again a dynamic IP, not a permanent one. Then elastic IP, I can go into this page at any point of time. If I want to delete this IP, I can right click and click on release address. The IP address is gone. So will AWS charge you if you create a elastic IP? If you create an elastic IP and if you don't use it, AWS will charge you. It's a very small charge that you need to pay. If you create an elastic IP and do not use it, then there is a charge. If you create an elastic IP, then you are attaching that IP to a running instance, not a stopped instance. If the elastic IP is attached on a running instance, then there is no charge for the elastic IP. But let's say you are stopping this instance, then you are not using the IP actually, which means you will be charged. So if you create an elastic IP and use it, there is no charge. If you create an elastic IP and do not use it, you will be charged. And always remember, you need to release the address from this same page, otherwise the IP address will stay. So don't forget, if you create the elastic IP, remember to release the address by right clicking the IP and select the option release. So and even volume also, right? Out of the services that we had learned today, volumes are also chargeable if you create volume more than 30 GB. Right now, as you can see, I have two 8 GB volume. That means I am using 16. Now I can still use 14 more, right? Up to 30 I can create. If I create more than 30, I will be charged. So use carefully. Make sure that you don't create any GB above 30. And snapshots are not I mean, they are chargeable actually, but in your case it wouldn't be. It would snapshot takes a very less size, which wouldn't really be counted into. It would be, it will fall under free tier only. And keeper, none of the others are chargeable. Be careful about elastic IP and volume. Other AMIs, none of others are chargeable. And now we are left with two more topics in EC2 that we will not cover now. Actually, we will start with VPC tomorrow. And once we covered VPC, we will come back to EC2 and then cover these two services, the load balancing and auto scaling. These are very important topics. And once we did that, then I would give you assignment. It's actually a mini a project that we are going to do in AWS. That I'm expecting we will finish by Wednesday. I mean, these topics we will finish by Wednesday. VPC, load balancing, and auto scaling. We will finish by Wednesday. Wednesday, I will give you the project. I mean, it's not the final project. As we learn more services in AWS, we will add up to that project. Any questions?
Basil?